Welcome back to 4-H Live online learning. I want to start off by thanking Caitlin for giving us such an amazing video on native pollinators, on native bees, telling us how to create an artificial bee nest. That was a really great hands-on learning experience to get to create one of those in our own homes to put out to attract some of our native bees. So thank you, Caitlin, for that great information. If you're tuning in late and didn't get to catch what Caitlin was teaching about earlier, no problem. Once we get done with this premiere, you can rewind and go and listen to what Caitlin has to say about native bees and how to create that artificial bee nest. So that is a great way to attract pollinators to our yards, especially as we move into those spring and summer months. We'll have a lot more of our gardens out, whether those be flowers or tomatoes. Those are some of my favorites. So I'm going to show you today another important and beautiful pollinator that we could attract to our gardens, and that is the hummingbird. So one thing that's always important is to give them a place to feed. So we're going to do just that. We're going to create a simple hummingbird feeder that you can do with a lot of supplies you probably have at home. Okay, so things you'll need are going to be pretty much basically a plastic cup. It doesn't have to be clear. It could be a red solo cup. It could be anything plastic that you might have. Make sure you're asking your adults first in the household before you use anything, because we are going to cut this. But this will just be something that can sit out there and our hummingbirds can feed from. So, okay, we are going to start with our cup, and we're going to cut two kind of moon-shaped holes in it. So this is another part that you want to make sure you get adult help with, because we're going to be using a box cutter, okay? So be careful as you're doing this, but we're going to maybe halfway up the cup, puncture a little hole. Make sure you're really careful with this part because this is sharp, and make a little bit of an insert there. And then I like to use scissors because I can control those a lot better. So cut your hole. Oops. Make sure you're being careful. There we go. Cut a straight hole there. We're going to cut it up a little bit. Here, I'll show you what I've been doing here in a second. So I'm cutting around almost to create that half circle. So you can see there how I've got a top rounded edge and then this bottom edge here. So that lets our hummingbird be able to grab the food in there. Now, if you want, you can also put one on the other side as well. I'm just going to leave this one side for now, but you can also put one on the other side to give even ample feeding for your hummingbirds. Okay, so once we've got a hole cut in the middle, we're going to again take our box cutter, and again, be careful, get adult supervision during this part, and we're going to cut two holes at the top, near the top, on opposite sides of our hummingbird feeder. So I'm going to poke one right here. Again, be very careful. I'm going to set this down on the table. It makes it a little easier. I want to be careful with myself as well. So there's one hole. And then here's my second one. Okay, so you can see right there, I've got one hole there, and I've got a slit hole on the other side. Okay, so what I'm going to do there is take some of my nifty ball of yarn. You can use twine. This is more of a twine. You can use yarn. You can use ribbon. Whatever you've got around your house will work just fine. So I'm going to take my twine that I cut, and I'm going to feed that through one side of my cup. Let's try the other side first. There we go. Try the other side. If you can't quite get it through, ask your adult again to help you. Use that box cutter to kind of push that twine or that yarn through a little bit so you can get some coming through the other side, just like that, and pull it through. Okay, so we're going to pull that across. You can either tie it there, or if you're like me, and I just like to tie one knot, I'm going to feed it all the way across the other side of the cup. Again, push our yarn or our twine through. Almost. There, we've got it. Okay, so we've got our twine coming through the other side. You can see that. Pull that all the way through. So now I've got my twine through my cup. Come up here and tie it off. Okay, tie a good knot so that when I go to put it outside, they can hang just like this, okay? So you might want to readjust. Maybe you want to move the string around a little bit, keep it so it hangs kind of straight like that. But there you can see we've got our front part where our hummingbird can come in and grab the water. Okay, so this is pretty good. But what are we going to do to attract that hummingbird? Well, hummingbirds are attracted to bright colors. A lot of people will say red is a good option. Other bright colors work well too. So you look around your house for things that you can add to this that would make it bright and cheery. Maybe some yellows, maybe some reds. So I found some yellow paper that I'm going to fold in half. Actually going to fold like this, and I'm going to cut a flower out of it. So let's go ahead and do that. I like folding it in half. That way I have two symmetrical sides of my flower. Okay. And don't worry if you want to do some different things. Maybe look around your house, find some festive things, add them on later, add them on now. Whatever works best for you, that's okay. This can be a work in progress for sure. Okay, so we've got our flower, my yellow flower. I'm going to take some glue and put it on the back side of my flower. There we go. And let's see, where do I want to put this on this? I'm going to put it on this side over here. So it's kind of on the back, but that gives it lots of area. All right, so I've got my yellow flower. I've got some red paint that I found around my house. This is actually some puff paint, 3D paint. I'm going to put that right in the middle. There we go. So now I've got a yellow flower with a red inside. Let's see, what else could I do? I've got some more red ribbon. So I'm going to poke one more hole. Again, be careful with your box cutter or your scissors. I'm going to cut one more hole. Make sure you've got adult supervision to help you out with this part. And take my ribbon. Put it inside, maybe make that into a nice little bow or whatever you think might kind of attract your hummingbirds to your bright colored feeder. A couple other options, we could take some paint. I've got some orange paint that I found around the house. I'm going to dip my paintbrush in. You can also pour this out on a plate. That helps a lot too. Kind of lets you be able to see the paint a little bit more, but I paint quite a bit, so I'd usually just dip right into the paint there. As you can see, my flower's falling down, but that's okay. Usually if I'm not showing a tutorial, I'd let it dry all the way before I go ahead and paint. So maybe you want to paint a little bit of your flower. Maybe you want to paint directly onto your cup here. I'm going to draw a circle, maybe some dots, you know, just some different things. This is an activity that lets you be very creative. Try some different things. Maybe you try a cup that has only yellow on it. Or maybe you try a cup that has only red paint. Maybe you're really lucky and have one of my favorites, some tie-dye duct tape around the house. Maybe you're just going to take some duct tape and put that directly onto your feeder and see which ones work best. See if the hummingbirds always go towards one feeder or the other. Okay, so once you've got your feeder decorated, and again, you can add all sorts of things to this. I'm going to take off my bow just for the time being. Anything you've got around the house, you can really add on to it. Those bright colors are always great. Before we set it outside, we want to make sure that we have the actual feed for our hummingbird. Okay, so we are going to fill our cups with 1 part sugar to 4 cups water. Okay, so I'm going to take my sugar. I've got a tablespoon here. Put about a tablespoon of sugar and put that directly into my hummingbird feeder. Okay. Okay, so then I'd measure this out beforehand, but then I'd pour my water into our hummingbird feeder here. We want it to be 4 parts. So for example, I put 1 tablespoon of sugar. So that means I'm going to need to put 4 tablespoons of water into my container. That's right. So 1 tablespoon of sugar, 4 tablespoons of water. You'd measure that out if you were doing it at home, and then stir it all up. So I'm just going to kind of stir it together a little bit. Make sure maybe you're spilling a little bit. You could even do this in a different container and then pour it directly into here. That'd actually be a pretty good idea. That way you're able to dissolve all of your water into your hummingbird container. So I'll move this closer to you so you can see that that water level is pretty close to that line we cut right there. So the line is right where my finger ends, right here. It's hard to see on the video, but it's right here where I can almost touch. I'm touching that water right now with my finger. So it's just inside. That means the hummingbirds have a place that they can go in and get that water directly from it, okay? So one important thing about adding sugar and water though, you don't want to add red dye. Please do not add red dye to your hummingbird feeder. That used to be a popular thing that people would add to their hummingbird feeders, but that doesn't help any, and that's actually sometimes bad for the hummingbird. So we want to make sure it's only sugar and water. We also want to make sure that we're cleaning that feeder daily. So I would suggest in the mornings, maybe first thing, right before breakfast, after breakfast, go out there, dump out your bird feeder, kind of wipe it off a little bit with a paper towel, and then dump some more water and sugar in there. You can go ahead and prep some beforehand. So for example, I'd probably take my good old University of Missouri mug here and put a couple tablespoons of sugar in it and then fill it with those equal parts of water, mix it all up, and put it in the fridge so that it's ready for the next day. So you can go ahead and do that ahead of time too. That way it's ready for you that next day when you clean out your bird feeder, your hummingbird feeder, excuse me. So that's a really simple way to create a hummingbird feeder. Again, then you just kind of hang it by the stem, and maybe you have to check to see how it balances. If it doesn't balance very well, maybe you need to adjust the holes, but add some different decorations, see what colors work, what bright things you can add on there, and try to attract those pollinators to our yards. Okay, so now that we've learned about how to feed and house some different pollinators, such as hummingbirds and bees, let's talk about some fun bee products that you can even make at home. So you've probably heard about honey-related foods. Honey itself is a product of bees, but what about honey face scrub? You ever heard of that? Ever thought about making it at home? Well, that's what we're going to do today. It's very simple. We only have 2 ingredients and then 1 optional third one. So this is, again, something you can do at home. Anyone can do this. Again, with adult supervision is always a good idea. Let's start off. We're going to take our small container. I like to select one that's either a glass or hard plastic and has a lid. Make sure it's got a good lid on it, okay? Then we're going to take our brown sugar. You can also use things such as Epsom salts, things that are a little not as fine. That way that you have a different texture in your scrub. I'm going to use brown sugar because that's what I've got today, and it tastes and smells really good too. So we're going to start off with 1 tablespoon. Grab my instructions a little bit. We're going to start with 1 tablespoon of our brown sugar. So I'm going to get out a tablespoon of my brown sugar, and we're going to put that directly into our container. Great, awesome. Then we're going to take 1 tablespoon of our pure honey. I've got some here that I like to use. So again, we're doing that 1 tablespoon worth of honey. Oh, mine's nice and thick today. Some good honey. I like using honey from local producers because I tend to have a lot of allergies in the Midwest. So the honey will sometimes get me more immune or used to the pollen and the different things that you'll see out in the wild that sometimes give me allergies. So I like to try and use some honey. Now, I don't give that as a medical advice by any means. That is more just an observation I've had. So, and it also supports your local honey producer. So keep that in mind. So we'll take our honey, pour that into our brown sugar. pretty thick today, so I'm going to use a scraper to kind of scrape a little bit of that out. Okay, there we go. Now here's our optional part. So you can either have just your brown sugar and your honey, or say you're using brown sugar or you're using honey and salt. And you can use just that, or for me, I like to add just a couple drops of an essential oil. Today I'm using lavender. I just like the smell. So we've got some lavender smell. Lavender and honey is a nice smell together. So I'm just gonna do 1, 2 drops. Okay, and be careful with some of these because these are highly concentrated usually. They're probably one of your parents or maybe an older youth in your home. So make sure you're asking before using their essential oils. Also be careful that you don't want to break out from the high concentration of the essential oils. So it's always good to have an eye on that. So, all right, now I'm mixing my ingredients together. So this is just our honey and our brown sugar and our lavender oil. Oh, it smells good. I wish I could give you some smell-o-vision on this. Hopefully you're making some of this at home or plan to in the future. It is quite a wonderful scent to have. Okay, so you can see we're mixing it together. Kind of becomes, it's kind of a paste, but you can still see it's kind of gritty in there, and that's good. That's what we want from a scrub. Because the point of a scrub is to be able to kind of exfoliate that top layer of skin, that dead layer of skin, and so it helps you reveal a nice, smooth skin underneath. So this could be a good gift if you're looking for things. It's a fun way for you to use a DIY so do-it-yourself activity at home. Okay, so we've got it all mixed together. Obviously, this is more than I need in one setting, and that's okay. That's why we chose a container with a lid. We just store it at room temperature so that we can use it any other time we might want. When you're ready to use this, first you want to wash your face. For those of us that wear makeup or just to get those body oils off of your face. So wash your face, get it nice and clean. And we're going to take what I like to very technically call a dab. It's about a fingerful or so, and put it right onto your skin. For me, I'm going to do it on my cheek here. It's too much of a dab. There we go. And rub it in a circular motion. It's kind of around like this. Ooh, it smells nice. And you'll feel the brown sugar a little bit kind of rub into your skin. That way it's kind of rubbing against your dry skin and helping with that. Great. Okay, so once you rub it a little bit, you're gonna rinse your face off, pat it dry, and then reveal hopefully some smoother skin. So again, be careful. We know that there are some allergies out there, so we don't advocate towards putting stuff on your face that you don't know is safe for you to use. But other than that, I hope we had a fun time learning about some native bees and doing a bee house from Caitlin. She did a great job about learning today about our hummingbird feeder and how we can keep that clean and updated to try and attract some hummingbirds. And then finally, we did a honey face scrub so that we can use some of those end pollinator products and show just how important it is that we have pollinators throughout our world. As Caitlin said, we might not have our fresh produce, our fresh fruits if we didn't have pollinators. So it's good to have them around and have them as part of our team and promote a healthy environment for them as well. So go ahead and try some of these activities. Hopefully they go well. I'm gonna go wash my face with this exfoliant. Again, my name is Chelsea Corkins. I'm a 4-H specialist here in Saline, covering Carroll and Sheraton counties as well. And I hope you had a wonderful day. Join us next week for 4-H Live again at 3:30. Bye.